Welcome back to the Natural Aquarium. Today we're going to tackle one of those things that people don't like in their tanks so much, algae. And we'll go over a bunch of general ideas on how you can control algae, some of the conditions that it thrives in, and we're also going to attack just a few different subsets of that algae population for those of you that have those particular types of algae. So stay tuned and we'll learn some great things here today.
Alright folks, I'm going to give away the secret right here in the beginning. The number one thing that you can do to help your tanks look as beautiful and algae free as these tanks are looking right now is to have plants. The more plants the better. Plants will take up all the nutrients that the algae would be feeding on. They'll block out some light. They'll create areas of more or less flow depending on how you want to have it. So if you want to have less algae, get more plants. It's that easy. Here's a contrast for you. This one, not so many plants, right? Maybe some mosses and stuff. Oh, what's it got now? Lots of algae. Yeah, all over the Java moss, all over the other guys. Hey, what about this one? Wow, lots of plants. Look, not as much algae. It's so easy. All you gotta do is go out and get yourself a lot of plants to soak up all those extra nutrients and stop the algae. But wait, there's more! Here at the Natural Aquarium, we actually keep around algae when it's there, for the most part. Sure, it might not look the best to some people who are used to these very sterile scapes, but algae is not a villain in the Natural Aquarium. It is a signpost. It will tell you something about your tank's ecology. In a natural aquarium, our goal is not to have sterility, it's to have harmony with the algae. In fact, in some cases, if you don't have algae, you might be heading for a problem. One of them might be the fact that you might be missing a vital food source for some of the smaller organisms that would be making up the food web in your tank that will ultimately feed your fish. Another might be that, hey, maybe the algae is picking up the slack of your plants because algae is able to process nutrients a lot faster. So without further ado, let's get into some of the details on some of these types of algae. The first type I'd like to go over today is the Rhizoclonium. And Rhizoclonium is usually a more pale color, as you're seeing here. It's oftentimes very slimy to the touch and very stringy, and it's usually mistaken for one of its cousins, Spirogyra, which is usually greener in color. So typically you'll find this on newer setups, ones that have not had a chance to mature yet. And this is typically because the CO2 levels are still kind of fluctuating, and so they're going to take advantage of that while your plants are still burning in. In fact, some of the plants, if they are not thriving, you'll often find this algae right on top of them. It does appreciate low flow areas, so if you can find a way to create more flow in a particular area where it seems to accumulate, you'll have a better time encouraging it to go elsewhere. Perhaps away entirely. Ultimately, for this algae, the easiest thing to do is to just wait for your tank to mature. It will go away after the plants have established and are eating up all the nutrients, are stabilizing CO2 levels, and in general having a more stable ecosystem. Appreciate it while it's around, and hopefully it'll be a nice habitat for fry and shrimp. Up next we have the green thread or hair algae, and this stuff is often very filamentous. It is not as slimy as the previous algae, and in general will form really long strands. This algae appreciates high light and low flow. I will often find it floating amongst the top parts of my plants or even my floaters. Like most forms of algae, it'll indicate that you have some sort of excess of some nutrient, whether it be phosphorus, nitrogen, or otherwise. Thankfully, all of this can be remedied quite easily by introducing more flow to an area, maybe trimming back some of the plants that are making a dense mat on the top, allowing it a place to live, and perhaps even introducing a few more floaters to that particular area to block out some of the light that it would be absorbing. This algae is not that quick to spread though, and the nice little nets that it's making can be a great place for small animals to hide. Thankfully, both of these algae are very easy to remove. You simply need a toothbrush, or some people end up using a fork. You give a little twirl, and just like spaghetti, you're able to pull that stuff right on out and then use it as a lovely mulch, or you can put it in your compost pile, whatever you want to do. Now, I will say that you should be careful with your more delicate plants with some of these, because as you'll witness here, I ended up tying the plant up, and well, I ended up just also pulling that entire plant out. Don't worry, I put it back later. Ad time. Friendly reminder here that remember the #1 strategy for eliminating algae is getting plants. And where's a great place to get plants? Well, Father Fish. Father Fish supplied me with all of these wonderful plants, and here they are soaking up all the extra nutrients coming from all that lovely fish poop and mulm, and making sure that my tank is nice and clean of most algae. Well, of course, you can still embrace the algae, but wouldn't it be better to just have plants? Hey, even the beta gives it 2 fins up. Go get some from Father Fish today. Back to the program. Next up is the green fuzz algae, otherwise known as Oedogonium. And this algae you will typically see appear on plants that are either suffering or their leaves are just rotting away due to age, and you will often see shrimp and other little grazers like them picking away at it. Next is the green dust, and then sometimes you'll have green spot algae. They're 2 different types, but they're great. Look at this. They provide a natural little background. You didn't need any frosting or anything like that. The shrimp will graze from it, and you'll usually have it in tanks that lack snails that would clean it off otherwise. If you did want to remove it manually, as you can see here, you can just pick up any random card from your wallet, or you can go out and buy one of these commercial ones. Just be aware that scrubber pads can pick up pieces of sand and potentially scratch your glass surfaces. The last one I'd like to go over is known as blue-green algae due to the color that you're seeing here. Now, they're not actually algae, it's a bacteria that is able to photosynthesize. They're a highly versatile type of bacteria, and you'll find them the world over in moist soils across the globe, even in deserts. In regular aquariums, you can often find it up near the glass, as we're seeing here, somewhere in the substrate level. This is also due to the fact that it can tolerate really low oxygen environments, and it can also tolerate areas of very low flow. This is another thing that reminds us that, again, we are only witnessing symptoms, and you cannot get rid of these things, but you must treat the underlying cause. Underneath the substrate, the cyanobacteria is perfectly fine. If you don't like the look of it, you can of course cover that area up. It will not receive light and will therefore not exist anymore. In fact, the sides of the tank that you are seeing now are the front-facing ones that get the most sunlight throughout the day in my particular setup. On other sides of the tank, you will not see this cyanobacteria at all. Where it can become a problem is if it's happening on the surface or happening on the other parts of your tank, as you're seeing here. When it starts to form these mats, it can indicate some real imbalances in phosphorus and nitrates in the water, and indicates that you probably need some plants to take those things up. Once you do, hopefully it will go away. As you're seeing, it may die back, and one of the big things to remind everyone here is that the whole reason I'm not talking about any chemicals whatsoever is because they are absolutely harmful to your tank, especially glutaraldehyde. Never use it. As far as biological controls go, I caution you on the purchase of fish to control your algae problem. Sometimes the algae is temporary, and that fish might actually depend on that algae to survive. And also, other algae eaters, as they mature, tend to eat less algae. So as usual, do your homework. Make sure that you can actually sustainably make your fish happy, and in turn, have that fish make you happy. From the smallest fry to the largest whale, all have a right to life. And it's here where I'll push you back towards some of the simpler organisms, the snails, the shrimp. They are going to be happy eating algae, but then also eating all sorts of other little things in your aquarium, being much more sustainable than a fish, which may end up changing its appetite, or growing larger than you expected, or otherwise. And if I didn't state it enough, the biggest fix is the tank itself. It's not going to be some silver bullet organism that you're going to add. Instead, you should know what your conditions are, and you should probably have more plants. And most of all, some things just work themselves out with time. If you've laid the groundwork, let your plan go through. And let nature balance itself.
Hey, thanks for joining us. Hopefully you came away a little better seasoned with our friend algae, right? It's not that bad. Sure, your tank's gonna grow some of it at some times, but with those pointers, hopefully you can keep it in control. And if you'd like to know more about algae in general, or perhaps a specific type of algae, well, we've got a lot more in our book, The Natural Aquarium, A Complete Guide. So I hope you enjoyed, and please leave a like, a subscribe, and maybe comment on what's your favorite algae story in the aquarium down below. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.